just tackle it. Just getting there was my goal. And so I was there. I was at the mountain, and I was like just stoked that I made this huge accomplishment in my life. It's something I had wanted to do forever. And I had thought about it, and then I had cried about it, and I complained about it, and it's like, why is this so hard? Why can't I go? And then I would blame, I blamed my husband a couple of times. It's like, said, well, you spent all the money on this. Now I can't go to Kilimanjaro. And it really had nothing to do with that. It had to do with me and my tenacity to push through. And I didn't have that for a while. And so through coaching, I was able to break through some of those barriers and, just kind of put my foot down and say, I'm doing this. And these are the things I have to do to make it happen. I had to lose weight. I had to get in shape. I had to put in the training. I had to save a little bit of money every time I went to the grocery store or whatever it was. I had to get the time off of work. And so I did what I had to do to make it happen. And for me to feel comfortable in my new position, to not take advantage of them as well. And yeah, just persevered. And so that's how it changed me. It made me more, resilient in pushing through those barriers and really looking and analyzing what are the roadblocks, what stops me from doing things, or why is that stopping me, and looking at that rather than just throwing up my hands and saying, oh, I don't have the time. I can't do that. Right?
Have you ever either watched a movie or read a book, and all of a sudden this one place becomes magical and you just have to see it? Pictures are great, but you have to go there and you have to have the experience yourself. Have you ever considered going on an epic hike? I've gone on a few, and I tell you, they're life-changing, because there are times where you have to really push yourself when you're getting a little tired. And it's great because you've put all this time and preparation into it, and now you're actually in the middle of that amazing experience. And you're taking it all in, and you're soaking it all up, and you're taking a gazillion pictures. And then there's a part where it starts to get tough, and you really have to dig down deep and see what you're made of. Well, these unforgettable experiences are what makes up Life Reimagined, especially at this time in our world. Our mothers, our grandmothers weren't doing these things that we're doing now. And so it's wonderful to see so many women, especially over 40 and especially over 50, just grabbing life and just going for it. My guest today is Melanie Michaelchuk. She decided that Mount Kilimanjaro was where she needed to visit, and not just once, but twice. And I love the fact, you'll hear in her story, that she shares that she couldn't get anybody to go with her for a while. It took a lot of persuading. And she actually, was going to go solo on that first trip. That takes a lot of guts, and that's a bold, adventurous woman redefining what's next. Especially when you hear that she's from Texas. Now, I've lived in Texas, and I can tell you, from Colorado, where I live now, to Texas, it's a very different training community. And there's not as much opportunity to practice climbing a mountain in Texas. So she'll tell you a little bit more about what she did to prepare as well. And what, unique pieces you have to watch out for, again, as we're in our 40s and 50s, because a 22-year-old is going to tackle this much more differently than we will. But I hope you listen into her story and all that she learned and gleaned from it, and why she even wants to go back again and take another group. So what about you? Will you be one of those people who puts Mount Kilimanjaro on your list? Or what's on your list right now? And what are you doing today to make it happen? Hey everybody, welcome back, and thanks for stopping in today at the Life Reimagined podcast. I'm your host, Wendy, and I'm really excited because today we're going to be talking about an epic hike. I love hiking, and I am most excited to hear from Melanie today because she's embarked on an epic hike, actually not just once, but twice. And I've never been anywhere near this altitude or this type of hike. And so I'm excited to learn from her today. So, I already blew it, right? I asked Melanie how to say her last name and then I went right into it wrong. Melanie Michaelchuk. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Michael
got it.
Chuck is here with me from Texas. Yes. Yes. And she's from Conroe, Texas. Now, I'm a transplanted Texan who lives in Colorado. So I have been to the Woodlands in the Conroe area. And we've got a lot of folks in our community actually from this area. So I'm also most excited to hear from Melanie on how the heck she trained for this type of event while in Texas, because this is a very different thing. So today we are talking about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Unbelievable. Over 19,000 feet, over 5,800 meters, and we're going to dive into it in just a moment. But first, welcome, Melanie.
Hi, Wendy. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. Super excited.
Since I couldn't make it down to Conroe to actually hear this in person, I had to get you on and talk today. So, okay, so tell me a little bit. We're going to go back first. What even got you started down this path? Why did you decide Mount Kilimanjaro, and when was this for you?
Right. So I was probably in my late teens, early 20s, and I was watching TV. I was just at home watching a public television broadcast, right? And it was a documentary on this woman, a middle-aged woman, as it is, and she was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and she was telling about the different forest zones and the different ecological places, and and she said it was a doable hike, right? It's not technical like Everest, and so that just really appealed to me, and I thought, wow, that
Right.
sounds really fascinating, and therefore it just stuck with me for many, many years. And I I tried to go a couple of times over the years, but I never really dug in and really focused on doing it, and it took a lot of effort, but I did it, and now I've done it twice.
So, how old were you when you first went?
The first time I went was in 2019, and so I would have been maybe 51, I think. Yeah, 51. Yeah.
Great. And then, do I remember correctly that you ended up either going by yourself because you couldn't rope anybody else into it?
Well, believe it or not, not everybody wants to go climb a mountain, and that's what I figured out while I was asking people. I was inviting everybody to come. Like, I was on the internet, I was, posting everything on Facebook. Hey, you want to come climb a mountain? What is your mountain? That was, I was in a coaching program at the time, and they were encouraging me to, make it a community event and get people involved, and I was inviting everyone I could. And then finally I had a kind of a friend of a friend who said, yeah, I want to come and do this. And I said, great. And so she had a couple of people who wanted to climb it as well. And so we're saying, yeah, we're going to do this. And we talked with the guide, and everybody was on board. 6 weeks before the trip, when it came time to actually book airplane tickets and make payment to the guide, everybody backed up. And, I was a little
Oh,
crushed,
no.
right? And I didn't really set out intending to go by myself. I wanted people to come with me. I thought that would be a lot of fun. And so it came the decision of, do I go by myself or do I not go at all? And the thoughts that crossed my mind were, okay, I'm 51. If I back out now, when will I have the opportunity to do it again? And, I'm not getting any younger. I don't know what my health is going to be like in another 10 years. I'll be 61. So I just dug in deep and just made the commitment and decided to go on my own.
And that's absolutely fabulous because I'm, as you know, a subscriber to the belief that we don't know what tomorrow brings. And, putting that bucket list item off way in the distance, it's going to be harder tomorrow. We're at that age, right? Where no matter what, it will be harder tomorrow. Because like you said, 61 is different than 51. And so I love the fact that you really thought about it and dug deep and said, do it now, live it now list, right?
You have to. You have to, because
Yeah.
you're right. You don't
Yeah.
know what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know what your health is going to be. I work in an industry where I deal with health complications joint issues or whatever it is, hips, knees, ankles. I don't know what my hips, knees, and ankles are going to be like in 2 years. I just don't know. And so if you can do it,
Yep.
I highly recommend just digging in and do it.
Okay, so let's get into actually the hike itself. So you decide you're going to go on this, and do you need to plan like 6 months in advance, like 4 months, and then talk about the training and a little bit of the logistics ahead of time, and then we'll dive into what it actually felt like when you were there.
Okay, so the first time I went, I planned about a year out. Depending on the guide availability, as a solo traveler, and I had some other health things that I needed to work on at the time when I declared I was going to go. I was 80 pounds heavier than what I am now, and I had to get in shape, and I knew that would take time. And that wasn't going to take 3 months. It was going to take more like a year of consistent training and to get myself going, and to build up the mileage and the stamina, because I wanted to have a good time when I was there. I didn't want to be literally just dying on the mountain. And so therefore, yeah, I took a year to plan it, find the guide, get in shape while I was doing it, train for elevation, train for hills and stairs and things like that, gather gear. You have to gather your gear up. And so there's a lot of different things that have to fall into place. Now, some people, when I was actually there, some people astound me where they will just book a ticket and go, and everything is fine, and they just wing it, and everything is good, and they're able to go do this. It took me a good solid year to get myself ready, get the courage up, make the effort, buy the ticket, save the money, get everything together, lose weight, get healthy, and go. So everybody's at different stages in their lives, and I really envy some of these younger ones who are like, they have nothing to lose. They're just going to buy a plane ticket and go to Kilimanjaro and go hike a mountain. It's like, okay, great.
Right.
It took me longer.
Well, and then how did you train in Texas? Because that's the other thing that, you're at sea level, and you've got to get up to 19,000 feet. So that is in itself, that takes a lot of planning. So what type of training did you do at sea level and in a flat area?
Right. So good question. Great question, really. And I get that question a lot. So training for elevation, I do a lot of stairs. You could do the Stairmaster at the gym. You could do lunges. You can do squats. Get out to as many hiking trails as you can that have some ups and downs so that you get used to that. But Kilimanjaro is a lot of ups. So you're looking at, a couple of miles of up and through rocky terrain. And so that's more technical hiking, I guess, or I don't know what a good word for it is.
Yep.
Complicated
Yep.
hiking.
Yeah, technical.
Technical hiking, sure. And, because even where I'm at in South Texas, we're flat, so we don't have a lot of rocks either. And, it's sandy, it's dirt, it's, pine trees. But we do have a couple of hiking trails where it has some rolling hills. And so just get out to those rolling hills, get up and over it, get out to, let's say, Colorado or maybe West Texas over around the hill country, or Austin, where they do have a little more rocks and terrain, so that you can test your hiking boots and your balance on stepping from rock to rock to rock to rock, because that is different than walking on dirt, right? So, yeah. And then the other thing is for elevation, so actually getting above sea level, right? Because we're consistently at 200 feet down here. And so how do you go from 200 feet to 19,000 feet and have confidence in doing that? And there's a few articles that I've read. I guess there's a benefit to having the heat and the humidity here, because there's some studies out there that have the same metabolic response in your system as heat and humidity and elevation. So if you can hike at heat and humidity, so train during the summertime in Texas, then theoretically you will be okay or better or trained for elevation. And so we were all good. Like the ones who went on the hike, everybody was good. I was fine the first time, and I was fine the second time. And I think it does have to do with that metabolic response in the system, where just your bodies are trained for it through heat and humidity. I know
Yeah.
athletes use it. They'll go and train in
Yeah.
saunas and things
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Well, the other thing you brought up is the balance, especially like on varying terrain, like rocky terrain. I noticed, yep, I noticed from your
Yes.
pictures you use hiking
Mm-hmm.
poles. I am a firm believer, especially over 50, of the value of having the hiking poles. And so, did it take a whole lot for you to get comfortable with either poles and the balance on the different terrain, or was it just again after a couple of times doing it that you felt like you got your kind of got your groove on?
It was just a couple of times doing it that I got my groove on. I don't like the feel of two
Mm-hmm.
hiking poles. I prefer one. I find two hiking poles makes me feel a little claustrophobic, but I like having at least one hiking pole because it kind of acts like, you know, a tree or a hand or just a little extra help in certain terrain. And I know lots of people love two hiking poles. There's all sorts of debate over hiking poles or no hiking
Yep.
poles. Everybody has to do whatever they feel comfortable
Yep.
doing. I like one. My husband likes two. I know people who don't hike with any.
Yep. Same here.
But with the rocky terrain, I do
Yeah.
recommend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a
And they're
hiking
so
pole.
great
You
because
have
there
to.
are types, I've got the kind that fold on up and you can stick in your backpack if you don't want to use it at that time. And so, you know, it's a great option to have. Okay,
Yeah. I just kind of swing it. Go ahead.
it's all good. Okay, so now let's get to actually now you're getting ready, you're on the trip, right? You've got to be uber excited. So what was it like?
Yes.
Were you on a 2 week trek and that included, the long travel over? So talk a little bit about what it was like for the experience.
Sure. So the experience starts the experience starts, getting ready for it and the excitement of shopping for sleeping bags and getting some hats and some gloves because of course living in the southern part of Texas, we don't have a lot of need for gloves and hats and things like that. So it all starts way back there. But the actual travel portion, you're at the airport, well, you get a 18-hour air flight right off the bat. And it's like, oh my goodness, that's just joyful. And it's hard. And I think that's probably the hardest part of the whole thing is just sitting in the plane for that length of time. But so you have your long flight over, and then you get to sit in the airport. Hopefully your connections aren't too bad. We flew from Houston to Doha with Qatar Airways. And so then we had our group had a big long layover, probably about an 8 or 9 hour layover in Doha, and then we got on a flight and went direct to Kilimanjaro from there. And then so that flight was maybe 5 or 6 hours, something like that. So not too bad, pretty doable. But we arrived at 7:30 in the morning, and so you leave Houston, and it's like 40 hours later you arrive, and so it's a lot of time in the air and at airports and just kind of trying to be your best self, right? Trying not to get too crazy. And so once you get to the airport, you're met with your guide. And our guide was Ellie with Kili Dreamers. He's awesome. I've used him on both my trips. And he met us at the airport, helped us with all of our luggage. The airport is a bit of an experience itself because it's a small airport. Kilimanjaro or Arusha isn't a huge town, and so the airport isn't that big. And we landed right on the tarmac and then went down the stairs of the airplane and then into the airport. Most people who enter Tanzania have to have a visa, so there's a lineup to go through security, and then there's a lineup to get the visa, and then it was almost like 3 lineups. So it's like you go to this one kiosk and you do something, and then you go to the next kiosk and then you do something, and then you go to the next one, and then they let you in. And it's like, okay, so you just follow orders, follow directions. They tell you where to go. The Tanzanian people are beautiful, nice, friendly people. Even the ones at the airport are really good. So anyway, so you get through security, through your checkpoints, you get to meet your guide. He helps you with all your luggage, put us in a van, and took us to the hotel. So once we're at the hotel, we get our rooms, and we stayed in just a nice small hotel. It wasn't a big fancy Hilton or anything like that, just a little community hotel, locally run, and very nice, trustworthy people. There's a little restaurant, and Ellie always ensures us eat food at this restaurant because he knows the quality. You're not going to get sick. None of my people have ever gotten sick. So we felt confident in eating at that restaurant. And so we did. We ate there. They had, spaghetti bolognese, kind of African style, and a few different beautiful fruit. Oh my gosh, the fruit trays were just absolutely incredible. They have very rich, lush soil, and it just creates just this beautiful produce. And so one of the things that one of the Tanzanian people said to us when we were wandering around the market one day, he made the comment, we may be poor, but we're not starving. We have plenty to eat. And you can see that. I'll share one of my pictures of the market, and the food is just absolutely amazing. So after you get to the hotel, you get yourself ready. Ellie will give you a rundown of what the plan is, and he'll also check your gear because he wants to know that you have what you need to get onto the mountain and to be successful in your climb. So you make sure that you have your sleeping bag, your boots, your socks, your long underwear, your thermal layers. So you be it hats, gloves, overcoats, rain gear, and your backpack, because you have to be able to put some of your stuff in your backpack. The other thing to consider when you're going up to the mountain is that you're only allowed a certain weight limit of items to be carried up the mountain for you. The porters are there, and they will carry up to 33 pounds of gear for you. So that includes extra snacks if you want to bring Snickers bars or Cliff bars, whatever it is you want to bring up to the mountain. Your cold weather gear, your extra pair of boots if you need an extra pair of boots, changes of clothes, things like that, because you're not carrying all of that up the mountain. You're just carrying, during the day, you're just carrying your water and your day pack. And then the porters are carrying everything else up the mountain. They carry the tents, they carry the chairs, they carry the food, they bring you water every day, they carry whatever you can think of. They will carry it up the mountain, but there are limits. So the porters have rights. There is a time when porters didn't have any rights, which is really sad when you start to think about it. And so people would give them too much to carry, and it would be detrimental to the porter trying to carry the gear up the mountain. So in the year 2000, they were able to lobby and get porters' rights enacted. And so now they have to have proper sleeping accommodations. They have limits of how much they have to carry. And then that's all checked at the park gate. So Kilimanjaro is a national park, and they have a gate type system. So they know exactly who is going up the mountain, who they're with, who their guide service is. And then they weigh everything so that it goes up the mountain. And then they make sure all that stuff comes down off the mountain. So that they're not leaving trash on the mountain, they're not leaving gear on the mountain. Everything that goes up has to come back down, including all the trash. So in total, when we had 7 people go on this trip, we had 7 hikers, we had 3 guides, we had Ellie, Roman, and Nagu. Then we had 2 cooks, and then we had 20 other porters who carried all the gear up the mountain. So anyway, so you go through the stuff with Ellie, you make sure your gear is good, and then after you do that, you get a good night's sleep, and then the very next morning, we started off to the gate. And so we drive over to the gate. Now, Kilimanjaro has several different routes to get up to the same location, to the same summit, and they're called different names. So one is Lamosha route, another one is Mashami, another one is Ronge, several different routes. Anyway, so we did Lamosha route, and that one took approximately 7 days, 6 to 7 days, and you just start hiking. You show up at the gate, they drop off the papers with the gatekeepers, and we just started hiking up. And so it's nice. The first couple of days are nice, easy hikes, 5 to 7 hours of hiking, which is also 5 to 7 miles approximately. And so it takes some time, especially with breaks, and you're taking pictures and you're looking at different things, and you hike at different speeds when you're with a larger group. Um, you're not hiking super fast, right? But you also want to acclimate while you're there. So you're hiking and you're also acclimating to get yourself ready for the higher elevation. So you want to take your time. There's a saying at Kilimanjaro, it's called poli poli, which means slow, slow. And you just take your time, and it's really the art of slow walking. You just pretend you're window shopping, take your time, one foot in front of the other, and enjoying the scenery. It's not a power hike. Definitely not a power hike. And so you get yourself from camp to camp, and the porters, they actually pass you on the trail. So this is the most fascinating part that I love. So you'll sleep, the porters will set up camp, and you'll sleep. You'll enjoy the evening. You'll get up, you'll eat breakfast in the morning, and you'll get yourself ready, and then you leave everything at camp, and then you'll start hiking. Well, about an hour or two later, the porters have everything on their backs and on their heads, and then they're passing you on the trail. They get past you, they set everything up. Some of the porters stay there and finish setting up, and then 4 or 5 of some other porters, they'll hike back and they'll actually meet you on the trail and take your day pack and walk with you to camp. But your guide is always there. Your guide is always there. He's always with you. But then you always get these extra helpers who show up, which is, it's just, it's a great sign, especially at the end of a hard day when you see the porters coming, because you're like, oh, okay, camp's not that far away. It's only maybe another mile, right? But you get your backpack off, you get to hike without it, and yeah. And then you get some other company as well. So super fun, super fun.
Nice. And so then they cook the meals, which is awesome. And so
Yeah.
how many days then did it take you to get to the summit, and describe what it was like at the summit? Because I do want to spend some time talking about the downhill, because everyone thinks about how hard it's going to be going up, but I know walking downhill, especially when you're a little tired, is even more challenging as well. So talk about what it's like now to get to the summit, what that feels like, and anything that was
Sure.
unexpected, and then we'll get to the downhill stuff.
Yeah, so summit day is really like a day, a night, and then a day. And so you have many hours intertwined that encompass summit. So you start in the morning, you start at a camp, it's called Barranco, and it's actually my favorite camp. I don't know why I love it so much. It's at around 15,000 feet, and it's just in this beautiful valley, and you're surrounded by these rocks and cliffs, and you have this majestic view of clouds below you, and it's just this beautiful spot. And then you're greeted with the wall. So you get up early in the morning and you start with the wall. And the wall is this cliff face, but it's just a very simple cliff face to hike, right? And so it just keeps on going up and up and up. The guides are there to help you, and they assist you and show you where to put your feet and show you where to put your hands, and you just get up the wall, right? It takes maybe an hour, 45 minutes, an hour of going up, scaling up this wall. And you want to leave early in the morning. Our guide always wants us to get up and go early, because we want to be more in the front of the line, because there's only one path to go up, and there's a lot of camps and other people who want to go up that same path. So you want to be more in the front and less in the back. And so we went up the wall, and this is the start of your summit, right? So you're starting summit, but you have to face the wall, and then you have another 5 or 6 hours of hiking, and then you get to base camp. So base camp is your camp that you get to nap at. And so at base camp, you show up, you have a snack, you get a little bit of a briefing, but then you're told to go rest. So you just go lay down and you rest. If you can take a nap, take a nap. But otherwise, you're just looking at the scenery, trying to catch your breath. Right then, you're not that much higher in elevation. I still think you're at around 15, 16,000 feet.
Okay.
But so you get to base camp, you're at around 15,000 feet. and you're resting. So after you rest for a little while, your guide will wake you up and you'll come and eat some dinner and given some instructions on what to wear for the evening hike. And then you go back and rest a little bit more. After you rest some more, then you get up and start gathering your things and start summit at 11:30 at night. And so it's dark. The intention is that you want to reach summit by sunrise. And depending on your hiking speed, you can either make it at sunrise or not. We were close, I guess, at sunrise, but it's really you have your headlamps on and you're following one foot in front of the other, and you're just watching where everybody steps, and the guide will guide you up the mountain, and you're in darkness for 6 hours. You're in darkness, and summit is really important to think positive. If you're not thinking positive, if your brain and your thoughts turn to negative, then that's what stops you from getting to summit. People start saying, I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm tired. My foot hurts. My ankle hurts. My friend is grumpy at me for coming on the mountain. And then you just start, whatever it is, whatever your thoughts are. And if you start going negative, that will stop you from going up the mountain. Those negative thoughts will make you, the combination of altitude and the combination of a negative thought, whatever it is, that combination is really potent and will, it'll bring you to tears. It'll make you start to hyperventilate. It'll make you just sit down and start crying, whatever it is. I've seen people, just a heaping mess being escorted, down the mountain because they're just delirious. And the main reason is because, they let their thoughts go negative. And so you want to put on a happy song, whatever your favorite song is. If you have one earbud in, you want to think positive. If you can, just think of people in a positive light and repeat that as you're climbing and putting one foot in front of the other and breathing, because it is long, it is hard, you are tired. You've been hiking all day now with just 2 rests, and it takes, and elevation is crazy. Once sunrise starts and then you start to see where you can go, it's beautiful scenery. You're up on top of the mountaintops. You start to see the rocks. You start to see other people around you. People are encouraging you. The ones who are starting to come down, they're starting to encourage you. It's not that much further yet. You can do it. But it's really, just to put you into perspective, you reach one point and it's called Stella Point. And it's almost like a false summit because people are saying it's not much further, just a little bit more, and you can get there. And you start to think, oh, this is going to be summit. This is going to be summit. But you forgot that you're getting to Stella Point first. And so people are encouraging you. You can do it. And then you get there and it's like, oh, dang, I thought that was summit.
Yeah.
And then summit, from Stella Point to summit, is only a half a mile, like 0.6 of a mile. But it took us, my husband had some satellite data that we could gather. It took us an hour and a half to go 0.6 of a mile. So if you hike, and I know a lot of people on here hike, if you hike, you might be hiking a 20-minute mile normally, or maybe a 30-minute mile normally. It took us an hour and a half to go 0.6 of a mile. And that was just amazing to me. But it's just because the elevation and everything takes effort. You're at 19,000 feet, and just adjusting your gloves puts you out of breath. You have to stop and catch your breath. Trying to zip up the zipper on your jacket, you get out of breath. Trying to take a picture of the sunrise. I have a picture of the sunrise. It took 2 of us to take that picture. I had the energy to hold the camera, and I said, okay, I'm holding the camera, but I need someone to push that button. And so I held it steady, and then my husband pushed the button. And so it's actually a very memorable photo for me because it was teamwork, right? It's
right,
like, okay,
right.
I can do this, you do that part. Yeah. So, it's hard and it's challenging, but it's doable. It's not
doable.
like it's fast hiking. It's doable. People do it all the time.
Yeah. So
It's
then how
hard,
long,
but you can
yeah.
do it.
How long are you up on the top before you start down? And like you said, if you're tired enough that you need somebody to help push a button for a photo, it's a long way down. I mean, and I'm not talking
Hmm.
like you're not falling off the mountain. I
Yeah,
just
now
mean
you have to go
walking.
down.
Yeah, one step after the other, because that I know is where, now you're tired, right? You've been doing this for a while. And so sometimes that's where more accidents can happen. So talk a little bit more
Hours.
about the downhill.
It is really a blessing that nobody broke any bones because you are tired, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
The terrain is rocky,
Yeah.
and it's, one foot in front of the other, but you are exhausted. But you do gain oxygen as you're going down to lower elevations. So you do start to feel better as you start to go down. Even though you're tired, you can still push through, right?
Right. Right.
So you're at summit for about 5 minutes. You get to take your celebratory pictures. You've been up for pretty much 24 hours now because you started with the wall at
Right.
Barranco Camp. You got to hike all day. You rested twice at base camp. And then you started at midnight. So you've hiked all the way up. It's now 8:30 in the morning, and you still have to go down to base camp again. And so, but once we get to base camp, you still only get to rest a little bit, and you have to go down further yet.
Yeah.
So let me describe that to you. So if you're at summit, you get to start to go down. Okay, everyone's going down. Everyone's in a good mood. We did it. We're starting to feel good. You're a little tired, but it's like, okay, when I get to base camp, I get to rest, right? So you're coming down. The porters, they come and help. We love seeing them. It's like, oh, we're getting closer. This is so awesome. But it still takes a long time, and it is a long ways away. So you get to base camp, and you get to have a snack if you want to eat. Most of the people aren't hungry. You're at that altitude. You're feeling kind of nauseous. It's really important to drink lots of water. You want to stay hydrated. Dehydration happens quickly when you're at that elevation. And so now you get to rest again. So you get to rest, and then you want to eat a little bit, and then you want to start. You have another 5 mile hike that you have to do that day to get down to forest level because you don't stay overnight at base camp. And that's when everybody got grumpy, when they were after base camp. It's time to wake up, and nobody wants to wake up. Nobody wants to get up. Everyone's exhausted. They're feeling terrible. They're feeling nauseous. You have a headache. I had people negotiating for helicopter rides down, trying to get a Jeep to come and get them.
Right.
Everybody has medical insurance, right? And so when you go to Kilimanjaro, highly recommend medical insurance, right?
Right.
So that
Right.
if you are really in dire straits, that you can get a helicopter ride down. There is a helicopter pad there, but if you can argue and state your case that you're tired and you don't want to go, then you have the energy to hike. And so that's the hard part is, okay, you're tired. Yes, I understand, but you need to gather your stuff together and get down the mountain. We need to start moving. And then once you started moving and get your head together, then everybody's okay. But it's that first hour of, no, I don't want to go. Said, I'm sorry, but you have to go. It's time to go. And so we gathered our things together and started to go down. Well, just to make it even more fun, it started to rain, and then darkness came. And so we were, after all that, Barranco Camp, hike all day, nap 2 times, hit summit, come down, rest again. Now it's raining and it's dark. So
Yeah.
challenging, yes. It really shows people's perseverance
Yep.
and their determination and their drive to just keep on going, because you really don't, you're in a situation, you don't have a choice.
Right.
Well, you could sit down and start crying. Okay. You could
Right.
do that.
It's still not
right?
getting you towards the end result,
Yeah.
right?
It's still not getting you anywhere. It's like, okay, still got to go. And so, yes, so we made it to camp. Everybody was just so exhausted. I went to the meal tent and sat down there for a few minutes. I had a little bit of spaghetti noodles, but really not much. And then I went to bed. Everybody else was in bed, just exhausted. But in the morning, everybody was up and feeling fine because you're at lower elevation, you get the oxygen coming back into the system, and
Yeah.
everyone's feeling good. So, and happy and excited. We did it, we persevered, we pushed through, and just did well. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we did it. We did it.
We did
And
it.
I have
And
people who
so
actually want to come back and do it again, believe it
do
or
that,
not. So,
right. And there's this type of activity that triggers in your brain that at the time is tough and you have to push through. But afterwards, you're so euphoric and excited about it that, like you said, it's surprising because maybe a day earlier, that's the person who's saying, I want a helicopter ride down. And the next day, they're like, I want to do it again, right? Because they look back on that experience as
yeah,
so,
right? Isn't
so
that, yeah,
amazing. Yeah. It's a
right.
really
Yeah,
cool
it's
experience.
just a tribute to our character.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay.
And
So
then
then,
some people will never do it again,
right.
right?
Some
And
people are
I've
like
heard,
one and done. Right.
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say some are like one and done.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Some people
But
are one.
then, and so then how many days up did it take and how many days back down?
I love that you asked that question. I think there's a 2 day span there where it's like, I'm not sure how many, if that was day 5 or day 6, but
Right.
it's approximately, depending on the route you take, it could be a 6 day route, or it could be a 7 or 8 day route. So it really
Okay.
depends on what route you take, and depending on your hiking abilities
And the
and what
group.
your guide recommends. And
Okay.
it could be based on weather conditions or what's
Right.
been going on at different camps or different gates, or if there's any construction going on or whatever. The first time I went, I did Mashami route, which was around a 5 or 6 day trek. And the second time I went was Lamosha route, which is a 6 or 7 day trek. So 6, 7
And when
days.
you say trek, you mean round trip.
Yes, up
Okay.
and down
Gotcha. Okay. And then so are
and
you,
back to your hotel. So
and
you
back to your
start at your
hotel?
hotel.
Okay. So then when you book your flights, is it 10 days apart, 2 weeks apart?
We did, ours was, I think ours was 9 days, 8 or 9 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do recommend having a rest day in there after
Okay.
the climb. A lot of people will add a safari on either before or after to give you a little bit of leeway, just because when we went this time, so everybody flew on the same flight together, all 7 of us, but then afterwards everybody wanted to do something a little bit differently. So some people stayed for a 2 day safari, stayed for a 3 day safari, and then also some people added on Zanzibar, so a trip to the beach for
Mhm.
another few days after that. So everybody, kind of customized the end
Right.
themselves. I think if I went again, or when I go again, I would like to add, just a couple of days safari onto that right at the end. Yeah,
That's
because
good
it's nice
advice.
to just kind of rest and decompress a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So then with the flight and just the trek with Kilimanjaro and the guide, what would somebody need to budget for if they want to go ahead and do this in 2023 or 2024?
Yeah, so the flight that we got was, at the time of booking, was around $1,400 for the flight round trip.
Okay.
And then for the all inclusive accommodations and food on the mountain and the hotel the day before the hike, right? So you're all inclusive. I love that. And
Right. I know.
we
Because
paid right
it's
around
not like,
$500.
yeah, because it's not like the all inclusive, sitting on the beach with cocktails. It's a very different all inclusive.
Very different, all inclusive, tents, things like that. Yeah. So around $2,500, and then you have to add on tips on top of that. When I was a solo traveler, I paid around $500 in tips, but this time going with a group, the dynamics of that change and the number of porters change, and so each individual person paid around $340 each in tips. But
Right.
your guide will help you calculate and plan that out. And we used American money to do the tipping. We were asked to bring, smaller-ish bills so that you could divide it up between porters and guides and cooks because everyone gets paid a little bit differently. But it's a whole ceremony, which is super fun. And then if you connect with certain porters or if someone is more helpful than other people, then you give them an extra $5 or $10 for their assistance and help. We certainly did some extra tips for. We had this one porter. His name is Vincent, and he was our waiter. And so the waiter, I think, has the hardest job out of everybody because he has to communicate to all of us all the time and really be our one point of contact for all of our wants and needs. And so if we have an issue with something, it's like, Vincent, I need help with this. Vincent, my zipper on my tent doesn't work. Vincent, I need some more tea. Whatever it is. And so this poor guy, so we tipped him, pretty good. He was dealing with 6 women on the mountain, and we were all aged between 41 and 65. So you can just imagine 6 women on the mountain, and you have this one poor waiter trying to, do whatever he can to make us happy. He was always good. He was always in a good mood. Super nice guy, and he just tolerated and persevered us. Right? It's a testimony to their perseverance too, because they have to
Yes.
deal with us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was fun.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm looking back to think like what other questions I have for you. So, what is one thing
Sure.
how it's either affected you that you didn't expect, or something you took away from the experience that changes you?
Yeah, I tried to think about that one. That's kind of a hard one, right? So how it changed me, just so right from the very first experience, just, accomplishing that task. The very first time I went, it was a solo hike. And, thank goodness I was in a coaching program because I was able to persevere and get through all those obstacles that were stopping me from doing whatever I wanted to do. I always had the excuse, well, I can't do this, or I don't have time for that, or I don't have the money, whatever it is, whatever those obstacles are that are in your way. And so through the coaching program, I was able to kind of analyze and talk about, well, what do you need to do? You say you don't have the money. Well, we never have the money. So what do you have to do to get the money for that? You have a year, or do you need 2 years? What do you need to do to figure out how to do this? And so I think that's how it changed me, accomplishing this goal of getting to Kilimanjaro. And my goal was never really to summit Kilimanjaro, right? Like that's just kind of part of the process. My goal was just to get to Kilimanjaro. Yeah, just tackle it. Just getting there was my goal. And so I was there. I was at the mountain, and I was like just stoked that I made this huge accomplishment in my life. It's something I had wanted to do forever. And I had thought about it, and then I had cried about it, and I complained about it, and it's like, why is this so hard? Why can't I go? And then I would blame, I blamed my husband a couple of times. It's like, said, well, you spent all the money on this. Now I can't go to Kilimanjaro. And it really had nothing to do with that. It had to do with me and my tenacity to push through. And I didn't have that for a while. And so through coaching, I was able to break through some of those barriers and, just kind of put my foot down and say, I'm doing this. And these are the things I have to do to make it happen. I had to lose weight. I had to get in shape. I had to put in the training. I had to save a little bit of money every time I went to the grocery store or whatever it was. I had to get the time off of work. This second time that I went, I had started a new job. I was in a new job. I didn't have the holiday time. And here I am planning this hike. And it's like, oh, here comes this new job opportunity. Yes, I'm taking this new job opportunity, but I still have this hike going on. And so I had to do a special request to get the time to be able to go on this event. And so thank goodness, super supportive. They agreed to let me take a few extra days so that I could go do this climb. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I made it so tight as well, is because I didn't want to request too much time. And so I just went, did the climb, came down, flew back home, went back to work. Right.
Yeah.
And so I did what I had to do to make it happen. And for me to feel comfortable in my new position, to not take advantage of them as well. And yeah, just persevered.
Yeah.
And so that's how it changed me. It made me more, I guess, resilient in pushing through those barriers and really looking and analyzing what are the roadblocks, what stops me from doing things, or why is that stopping me, and looking at that rather than just throwing up my hands and saying, oh, I don't have the time, I can't do that. Right?
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's something we've gained that we didn't see coming. Like, I think if I were 29 or 30, those are the roadblocks that may have stopped me back then. But we've been through so much now that, like you said, you can actually talk yourself through, and you can plan, and you can break things down, that it's not going to beat you anymore. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're going to take a stand, and if that's something that you want to do, then do it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it work.
Yeah.
Make it work.
Yep. We've made lemonade out of a lot worse, let me tell you. Okay, so Melanie, then what is,
Right.
as we finish up, like, what is one thing you're going to commit, like what's on your, instead of a bucket list, I call it a live it now list. What is something that you've got on your list either for
Oh, I like that.
2023 or 2024? What's next for you?
Okay. First of all, I want to say I love your live it now list, because the whole bucket list thing, did you ever hear that song maybe when you were a kid? Something about a hole in your bucket. And so I always think, whenever I hear bucket list, I always think I have a hole in my bucket. And and so I love your live it now list. And that's awesome. And so the live it now list, there's a few things on there. I really want to go everywhere. And so that's one of my problems, is that I have a hard time deciding. And even when I go to a restaurant, I have a hard time picking something off of a menu, because I really like food and I like everything. And so sometimes you just have to throw a dart, and it's like, okay, where are we going to go? But I do want to, um, Iceland is on my trip. I know you've been to Iceland. Uh, New Zealand, the South Island, definitely on my list. Kilimanjaro again in 2024. I want to take another group to go to Kilimanjaro. That's one of my repeat goals that I want to do, is keep on encouraging people to find their mountain, and whether it be literal or metaphorical. Mine is literal. And so let's go climb a mountain. And then there was one other one in there. I don't know. Maybe I'll throw a
It's
dart.
okay.
Find
Maybe you'll
somewhere.
throw a dart. Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
lots
and
of plans.
lots of plans. And
Throw a
that's
dart.
actually
Yeah.
really good. That's really good to like all of these things, right? So then talk for just a moment or two. I know you've got a longer version of your story. So people who want to hear a little bit more about your adventure can find you on YouTube. So I'm going to actually, we'll have it in the show notes, and we'll have it on the YouTube, on the video
Oh,
version
nice.
as well. But do speak. So if someone's just listening to the podcast
Thank
version,
you.
how can they find more information or connect with you other than the destinationu.net website? So folks who are listening, if you don't have time to write it down, you can connect
Sure.
and you'll see a link to Melanie's materials. But where else can they find you?
They can find me on Facebook or Messenger. I love to connect through there. I also have a webpage. It's Melanie Michaelchuk hiker.com, and I can send you a link for that as well. My name is pretty unique, so if you copy and paste the spelling and put it in the search bar, you should be able to find me. And certainly open to anybody emailing me. And so just Melanie, it's mmichaelchuk@gmail.com. I would love to connect. And if anybody needs help with coaching or really wants to do Kilimanjaro, I can help you connect with different people, or even a safari. The people of Tanzania really depend on tourism. And you can just imagine in 2020 what it was like during the pandemic. Tourism went way down. And so these poor people just really relying on the tourist dollars. So if you're able to go to Tanzania. I have a great guide there, and he'll set you up for an awesome safari or Kilimanjaro hike. So yeah.
Perfect. And actually, Melanie, I know you've sent me some information, so I'm going to make sure I have all of those links. And then we'll also include a couple other, like the guide information and things like that for anybody who's listening and wants more info. So thank you so much. I'm thrilled to actually learn more about Kilimanjaro, since it wasn't on my list before, but now I have to really take a deeper look and see if this is something to add. And I'd love to have you join us in Iceland this
Yay!
year or maybe in future years, because we're going to go see some orcas and
Oh, that
hike a
would be so
glacier,
fun.
and the ice caves are amazing. And so we'll be going back in March this year in 2023. So,
Oh, that's
all right.
exciting.
Well, Melanie, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to connect with you. And again, I love some of the key nuggets that you mentioned today, because it's something that resonates not only with me, but with our group and community as well, which is we are getting older every day. Don't wait till tomorrow. Do it now, because tomorrow it's going to be harder, and that this is doable, that this is the time. You guys, we have worked so hard already. This is our time to play and actually really grab life and enjoy it. So thank you so much for being a part of inspiring others and coaching others and getting them up on their mountain.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Wendy. I really appreciate the opportunity to share and chat with you today. Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining, and we hope to check back soon. If you liked today's podcast, please subscribe or hit the like button and let us know what else we can share with you. If you've listened to this and you've got an epic adventure you want to share, go to destinationu.net and you'll see a place in there where you can submit to be a podcast guest in the future. Because all I want to do is bring these amazing women and these stories together to inspire you to keep getting out there. I'm really excited also to let you know that today's podcast is being brought to you by Q Sciences and this amazing collagen product. It is the only medical grade collagen out there, and I am digging it, especially after some of the epic hikes and activities that I go on. So I encourage you to check out the website. It's under destinationu.net, and either my store or my favorites, you'll find it there. And my community members actually get a 25% off discount. I guess I said that right. 25% discount off of all of the Q Science products. And so I'm relying on Q Sciences. It was after a long time of really figuring out a quality product that's going to keep me healthy. And I love some of their other products. But today I really want to focus on collagen, since we're talking about epic adventures and the need to rebuild that body after something like her Kilimanjaro hike. So check out my website, destinationu.net, and go to favorites, and you can link there to get a sample or to try some of the collagen on your own. So thanks everyone. Take care of yourself and have a great day.